Looking for NFL football? Stop right here. You found your home for weekly NFL talk and fantasy football. Coming to you live from the BackupPunter.com. This is the Backup Punter Podcast. Now, here's your host, the man who thinks fullbacks win championships, Keegan Matheson.
Now, I said that we were done with the New England Patriots. I said we were done with Deflategate. We were done with the cheating thing. And then ESPN's Outside the Lines put out that report yesterday on Tuesday. Coming to you Wednesday right now with episode number 23 of the Backup Punter Podcast. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for joining, downloading, listening, whether it's on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, wherever you do find the podcast. You're here, and I appreciate it. And just getting off a little 1 week hiatus again. I think the ego is getting out of control with these hiatuses I'm going on. But moved across the country, moved to Toronto this past week, so we're all settled in. Backup Punter Podcast Studios are kind of in shambles still right now, but they're getting pieced back together. So I'm glad to be back with you right now. Now, as always, this great podcast is brought to you by the even better people at Dynasty Sports Empire Podcast Network and Dynasty Sports Empire Fantasy Sports Network. So check them out on Twitter at DSE_football. That's DSE_football. Get yourself involved in a last-minute fantasy football dynasty startup. But also, if you're looking ahead to the rest of the fall, winter, get yourself in on some hockey leagues, basketball leagues. It's as good as it gets, so check them out and tell them I sent you. They'll still like you if you tell them that I sent you. I promise, don't worry. So we're going to start off today, obviously, talking about the Patriots. Now, I did vow to be done with Deflategate, which we are. This isn't about Deflategate anymore. The ESPN Outside the Lines report that came out yesterday morning. And, number one, off the bat, it's, Outside the Lines is one of the few entities that still believes in a long-form investigative article. So tip of the cap to them. It was a great read in a world where most of sports journalism is just, a 10-word article that says, hey, look at this tweet. Hey, look at this catch. It was refreshing. It was nice. Now, the article, thankfully avoiding Deflategate, which we're done with, again, focused on Spygate. The New England Patriots videotaping other teams, that scandal. And this was not a rehashing. This was not just kind of kicking a dead horse type thing, which I was afraid it would be. When I woke up and I saw the Twitter buzz yesterday, I thought, really, is ESPN just kind of trying to get that last 1% out of this before the season opens? Not the case at all. Now, in this article, there were allegations. I'll start at the top, really. The one that really scared me, the one that made me say, what the hell is going on here? The allegation that the New England Patriots had sent employees to sneak into opposing locker rooms, opposing hotels even, to steal their play sheets, because many teams do choreograph the first 15 to 20 plays of their game. There was an allegation of stolen play sheets. That's above and beyond any Deflategate, any misunderstanding of rules, obviously. It went into great detail about how the Patriots had employees disguised, either as NFL Films employees. They would tape over the Patriots logo on their shirts on the sidelines, wear their sweaters inside out, to film the opposing sidelines. That's another big issue. Now, Bill Belichick's defense to this is an intriguing one. He says, we did it in front of 80,000 people on television. Everyone can see. And that's true. But again, the Patriots do it in a way that just makes you say, why? These hidden kind of rogue Patriots officers lying to security, saying they're filming something for a documentary or for Kraft Productions, for Robert Kraft. That's worrying. Another issue that came up is the control of the quarterback to head coach headsets at Foxborough, which have been a big story that I've really been interested in. There's the story about when the Patriots were hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars, how in some critical moments those headsets cut out, only on the Jacksonville sideline. Then there's the story about when Roger Goodell did eventually investigate Spygate, sent some officials to the Patriots stadium, to their coaches' offices, and it was discovered there were over 40 games worth of film of the opposing sideline, of coaches and their signals, with thick binders of notes matching up signals to play calls, meaning the Patriots could see another coach waving his left arm up and down twice and pumping his right fist, and that would mean it's a blitz from the left side, something like that. Over 40 games of that. And Roger Goodell ordered those to be destroyed on the spot. There was this account of NFL officials stomping the tapes, breaking them with their shoes. And of course, being NFL officials, I'm picturing men in suits stomping these tapes into small bits. And at least, if the Patriots did cheat, at least they give me that enjoyable image. It keeps going on. There was this real suspicion that the Patriots had taped the St. Louis Rams walkthrough before the Super Bowl. Mike Martz, very suspicious about this. Would it have made a difference? I don't think so. When you look at how the game actually went, I don't think so. But a Patriots staffer admitted that he and two others watched the walkthrough and were grilled about it by Patriots coaches the next day. Mike Martz says, even to this day, I think something happened. So that's everything in the article. That's a wrap-up of what you need to know. Now, what does it mean? What does it all mean? Now, in my opinion, if on Monday you thought the Patriots were cheaters, then Tuesday has passed, and it's Wednesday, and you still do. If you are a Patriots fan, or you're just kind of like me, you're just indifferent, you just don't care anymore, well, I think that's how you still feel. And it's not that maybe saying I don't care is a bad way to say this, but it's gotten to a point where I fully understand that nothing's going to happen about this. Nothing is going to be done. The league is not going to go back and take away Super Bowls and investigate this, because that's bringing something upon themselves that won't do any good for the league. There was detail in this story about Roger Goodell asking Mike Martz to put out a statement after that Super Bowl just to say, you know what, everything is kosher, everything was above board, and we accept how the game went. Let's move past this. And Roger Goodell was saying to Mike Martz, this would be really bad for the league. We can't have this turn into a thing. Because the league has been plagued by things lately. We've all seen it. Whether it's domestic violence, whether it's cheating of any kind, there's always something going on in the league. There hasn't been a point on the calendar for a couple of years now where everything's just been normal. And it really gets insufferable. And that's really the reason that I think myself and many others, you're just kind of sick of the NFL. But of course, this weekend, it returns with real football. And I'm as guilty as you are. We'll forget all about it. But this does really fuel the fire for the Patriots haters, of which there are many. And at least this will put the Patriots firmly under the microscope, both from the league, as the article does a great job at explaining, and from fans. They're not going to be slipping anything past us now. Although Bill Belichick is a smarter man than you and I and our 10 best friends combined. But the league seems to be honed in on the Patriots, so if anything else does go sideways, it will be caught. It should be caught, but don't you have to kind of feel helpless as an NFL football fan? Say if you're a fan of those Rams, of that Philadelphia Eagles team who lost that Super Bowl. Would it have made any difference at all? To be honest with you, I really don't think it would have. But this Outside the Lines article makes a great point. It's saying the Patriots are not a team that rely on elite talent and blowing teams out. They're a team that relies on making that one or two big plays in crucial moments. Well, what if one of those crucial moments goes the other way? We can go down a long rabbit hole of what ifs. The games are what they were. They're not going to change. But if you're a team, if you're a fan of those teams, it stings. And reading that article did sting. There was even a point in the article where it said the Green Bay Packers had been filmed once. And as a Packers fan, I read that and I thought, man, that's a personal affront. I thought, come on. But at the same time, Tom Brady is not a backup. Bill Belichick is not a bum. And this Patriots team has gone out on the field and earned wins at the same time. It just, again, puts you in a position as a fan where you feel helpless. You look back at these and you know nothing's going to happen. And given how widespread this was and how much has happened since then with Deflategate, it makes you wonder, is something still happening? It gives you very little confidence in the league, and the league doesn't deserve your confidence one bit. It is a circus of incompetence, and I don't believe in the NFL. I truly don't. I don't believe in the NFL as an organization. I love it as a sport, as entertainment, as athletics. As an organization, I don't believe in it one bit. And neither should you until a lot of this changes. And one thing I'll end with, and I don't think many of you are going to agree with me on this at all, but 1% of me, deep down, way past the 99%, but 1% of me feels bad for Roger Goodell. Because I truly do feel like he is just in over his head. Like he wants to do well. He entered this meaning to do well. He was supposed to be kind of the ball and chain, the sheriff commissioner that would cut down on dangerous hits, on injuries, everything like this. And for a little while, people loved the guy. And I do think that he meant well from the beginning, but he got in over his head very quickly. And then he moved into this terrible swing of overcorrections. He messed up Ray Rice, he overcorrected in other cases, then he overcorrected back. There's no middle ground. And imagine trying to do that job with 32 billionaires in your ear. 32 billionaires. That's difficult. And I certainly couldn't do it. And while Roger Goodell has proven to be incompetent, absolutely, while I don't really think he should keep his job much longer, there is a part of me that realizes he's a human being, a man who has a wife, who has a couple daughters, who is just lost right now, who's in over his head and probably won't be able to find the surface of all of this. Now, the main argument against his firing is that, well, the owners are making a lot of money with Goodell. They're happy. They're making a ton of money. Well, if they change commissioners, they're not going to make $0. They're not going to go from making millions a year down to nothing. Maybe they'll make more with a better commissioner. And I think a lot of owners are going to start looking at it that way. So it's a strange situation, this New England thing, as we have to say too often. My opinion on it is, whatever. It's already happened. I'm not going to get mad about something that has happened and hopefully ended. But again, it makes me sit here as a fan and just think, what are we cheering for? What are we paying money for? What am I buying a $50 t-shirt to support? That type of thing. You just feel like you're worshiping an empty thing. And it's something to think about, and it's something to think critically about. And I really wish that it's something that would stick. Like you hear people say so often, in the wake of these domestic violence incidents, in the wake of Deflategate, all of this. Oh, that's it, I'm done. I'm not going to watch the NFL anymore. It's grown so big that it doesn't matter. If I take a stand today and say, I believe the Patriots cheated, I'm not going to support the NFL. Do you think the NFL is going to notice me? Everyone that listens to this podcast, if you told 100 people each not to listen, not to watch the NFL, if every one of you told 100 people, the NFL still wouldn't notice. If 1 million fans disappeared, the NFL wouldn't notice. That's how big this league is, and that's how untouchable they are. And that's the problem. And this is Wednesday. Where will I be tomorrow night? I will be on my couch watching the New England Patriots play football. I'm the problem. The NFL is the problem. And at some point, you just have to stop worrying about it. So let's move on to something else. And should I close the door on Spygate here, too? Should I close the door on Spygate the week after closing it on Deflategate? I suppose so, unless there's something else next week. But I do want to get into some real football, which exists, and it is quite fun when you get the opportunity to talk about it. Now, we're going into week 1 of the fantasy football season. I did all 3 of my drafts this week. I decided to join a third league. I am a very old school fantasy football player. I've been in 2 leagues for a long time. I like them, and I always say no to other leagues. But I decided to join another, and I figure if I'm in 3, I can aim to go 2-1 each week, hopefully make a couple playoffs. We'll go like that. And this year, I'm going to try jumping into the daily fantasy world. It's something, again, that I'm late to the party on, just like I'm late to the party on a lot of these things. And I'll give it a go. I don't agree with people making that their one and only. I still think that a good 12 or 10 or 12 team league, you can't beat that, especially one you've had going for a while. And I don't understand the way that daily fantasy is marketed. I hear these commercials for DraftKings and stuff, and it says, no long-term commitment. You don't have to deal with players getting injured. You don't have to deal with having a team all year long and dealing with it. Really? Is that a problem for people now? Is that how little we can commit to things? We can't deal with a fantasy football team all season? I love it. But I'll jump in. I'll lose some money for a week or 2, and then I'll jump back out probably. But we'll see. Now, in my drafts, I'll tell you one mistake I made. I did tie myself to an anchor. I drafted Tyler Eifert in all 3 of my fantasy football leagues. Now, I've got backups. I've got a parachute in each one. But, man oh man, have I ever tied myself to Tyler Eifert. I was able to get some good value, I think, for Arian Foster in a couple of them. Some good value for Todd Gurley in a league where I had some running backs. And I did get some really good keepers, I believe. So I'm optimistic. I've got one league where I'm very optimistic, one where I'm in the middle, and one where I need to do some work. So it's going to be a really fun season. And each week I'll keep you updated with some sleepers, some picks. But not in week 1 because we haven't played a game yet and you've already done your draft. In terms of streaming defenses, I've picked up Carolina in most of my leagues. They're taking on Jacksonville, and then I've got Miami and a couple others because I think they have Jacksonville coming. I did choose to go the route of streaming my defenses after people really overdrafted the Seahawks, the Bills, etc. in most of my leagues. So let's jump into some fantasy news that we've missed in the past 10 days. Number 1, Robert Griffin. And this absolutely made my day. If you listen to the Backup Punter podcast, which evidently you're doing, you know that I'm not wild about Robert Griffin. And part of me feels bad because I know that he was ruined by the Washington Redskins as well. It's a 50-50 blame. They put him in situations he never should have been in. Never. But that's the Redskins' way. They are, alongside the Cleveland Browns, they may be the most poorly run organization in football. I'd say they're the most poorly run organization. But this is good because it gives Gruden his way. Gruden did not want Robert Griffin as the quarterback. He wanted Kirk Cousins, and now he gets him. The thing with Robert Griffin now, he's behind Colt McCoy as well as the number 3. There is no way that he succeeds in Washington, and there's no way that he sees the football field this year. So I'm confused as to why he is still on the roster. Now, perhaps Washington wants to hold on to him, try to turn him into a late-round pick next year, which is fine. My dream scenario is Robert Griffin going to St. Louis and reigniting his career on the turf there, thus making that trade absolutely hilarious. But there's going to be one coach in this league, there's going to be one general manager in this league that still thinks they can get something out of Robert Griffin. They're going to be disappointed, I think, but someone will try. Now, what does this mean for the likes of Pierre Garçon, Deshaun Jackson, Alfred Morris, Matt Jones? Honestly, I don't think it means much. If they were downgrading from a full Robert Griffin, well then, you've got that mobile quarterback factor, just like Tyrod Taylor, which I'll touch on later in the show. But was Robert Griffin even a mobile quarterback anymore? He played mostly from the pocket, which is a large reason for his demise. They were really trying to put water wings on this guy, to put safety gloves on him. If you're going to draft a quarterback like Robert Griffin, let him be Robert Griffin. Live or die with Robert Griffin as Robert Griffin. Don't turn him into something else. But for Alfred Morris, I still think they're going to run him heavy. I think Matt Jones will be fantasy relevant, especially if Alfred Morris goes down. You have to get him as a handcuff, which I've done in a couple leagues. And for Pierre Garçon, Deshaun Jackson, I think it's business as usual. If anything, it might help them a bit to have a quarterback who can consistently deliver the ball. Next up, we got Tim Tebow, who is released and is not one of the 1,700 players employed by the NFL right now. Now, Chip Kelly was honest. As crazy as this man is, I've come to appreciate him. And, using the word appreciate is a bit strange here, but I like what he does sometimes. Now, with Tim Tebow, he was blunt. He said, listen, Tim was not good enough to be on our 53-man roster. He was not good enough to be the number 3. There was no dancing around it. There was no this, no that. And he suggested that Tebow go to the CFL, which I think is a brilliant idea. Now, I've mentioned this before on TJ Smith's War Room, another great podcast in the Dynasty Sports Empire podcast network that you should check out. But I still think the CFL and NFL need to find some sort of agreement. Maybe a place where an NFL team can keep 3 or 4 players under contract, but send them to Canada for a year. Because for players on the outside looking in the NFL, what are your options? I had this discussion with Michael Sam once, who did come to the CFL and really flare out. But for players like that, who didn't put up elite combine numbers, who have bounced around some tryouts, some stuff like that, once you're out, it's so hard to get back in because every year there's a crop of younger, faster players. You need somewhere where you can put some game tape on, where you can be on the field, tackling, and showing instincts, because that is the difficult part. You cannot show instincts in a tryout. You cannot show football IQ on a practice field, trying out in front of an assistant coach. That's why the CFL is valuable here. I thought Chip Kelly had a great idea. But for Tim Tebow, he's young, handsome guy, well-spoken, knows football. He'll end up on a major network very soon, just like he already was. And he comes in with a large built-in follower. So good on Tim Tebow. He made a run at it. And good on the Eagles for literally giving him a real try. But it looks like the end of the road, and that's fine. So moving on to some running backs here entering week 1. There's some muddy waters in the backfield. We'll start off with Cleveland. Now, Cleveland is a team with a bad starting quarterback and probably the worst wide receivers that I've seen in this league collectively in a few years. Yet they have one healthy running back at the time I'm talking to you right now, Wednesday morning. Isaiah Crowell is healthy. Duke Johnson's still going through concussion protocol. And they don't have another back. They traded Terrence West to the Tennessee Titans, a 2014 third-rounder. They traded him for a 2016 seventh-rounder. That's a great investment right there. I'm not sure why they would have done it at this time. So where does this leave Cleveland? It gives Isaiah Crowell a little more clarity as the starter. Duke Johnson's still out for now, but where is Monte Ball? Where's Ahmad Bradshaw? Pierre Thomas? Where is a veteran signing? They have to get somebody in there. And they've got to do it quick because this team, even without a bad quarterback, is built to run the football. Because that offensive line is good. And it can be very good. They're built to run the football, but they don't have running backs. I don't understand. Now, looking over on the other side of that Terrence West trade, you have the Tennessee Titans. They've got Bishop Sankey in the lead role now. David Cobb, unfortunately, on injured reserve, designated to return. Dexter McCluster will probably get in there on passing downs. Dexter McCluster, one of my all-time favorite college players. And he's turned into a nice role player in the NFL. The strange thing for me is Ken Whisenhunt is really dedicated to running back by committee here. He really wants to work in McCluster on passing downs. It wouldn't surprise me to see Terrence West get some sort of work. Bishop Sankey gets some work. Bishop Sankey was the top running back drafted last year. Last year. Not a few years ago. He hasn't fizzled out that long. Last year. Now, he didn't look great as a rookie by any means. And I'm not trying to make this a hot take where he's going to break out and be a top 5 fantasy back. Not even close. But why not give Bishop Sankey leading carries? Why not feed him the football 15, 18, 20 times a game and see what the hell you have in him? Because I don't want the Titans to get to this point where they kind of feed him. They give him 6 carries one game, 11 the next, then they give him 20, then they give him 2, and mess this guy up. Now, he's messed himself up a lot, But this is just like the conversation I had a couple weeks ago about Johnny Manziel. Give him a chance. If he fails, fantastic. You know he is not your guy. If he succeeds, great. You have a guy. But you need to know. Instead, the Titans are going to go on wasting picks, wasting resources on running backs, and not dedicating to them. That's the problem I have with running back by committee. Yes, they have skill sets that match each other, that can help each other. But in every running back by committee, there's one running back who is the best running back. Give them a try, because some get stronger as the game goes on. Then in Buffalo, thank God, we have Tyrod Taylor as the starting quarterback. Now, Matt Castle was released, then brought back as the primary backup ahead of E.J. Manuel. Strange to me. Another failed draft pick. But Tyrod Taylor is in as starter, and honestly, I think he's going to do very well. Not just fine. I think he's going to prove to be one of the better quarterbacks Rex Ryan has had the chance to work with, which isn't saying anything. Isn't saying anything at all. But Rex Ryan has got through his career trying to minimize the quarterback. I think every once in a while Tyrod Taylor will be able to step up and maximize his position and impact the game, which is something that Rex Ryan has never had. Even when Mark Sanchez, in his early years, he just kind of had to pass for 175 yards and a touchdown, and they'd take care of everything else. Tyrod Taylor's dynamic. He's earned his chance, and he's learned from the great Joe Flacco in Baltimore. So he's okay. I like this move, most importantly, for LaShawn McCoy. You're going to see, just like when you have Cam Newton at quarterback, old school Mike Vick at quarterback, stuff like this, when you have Robert Griffin at quarterback as a rookie with Alfred Morris there, it really opens up running lanes for the running back. I think LaShawn McCoy's he's really setting up for a huge year. It looks like he's going to get goal line carries as well. Then we have James Jones signing with the Green Bay Packers. Surprised me a little bit. He's 31 years old, and he didn't get cut from the New York Giants because they thought he was too good. There's a reason he was released by a team that probably could have used him. But James Jones come back to the Packers. I don't think he's fantasy relevant right now. He's someone that will be a better real football player than fantasy football player, which is fine. But I think he's going to split time between the number 3 and 4 receiver in Green Bay. There will be some weeks where he does catch that touchdown. He's very good in the red zone, but otherwise, stay away from him. Christine Michael was then traded from the Seattle Seahawks to the Dallas Cowboys, and of course instantly became the knee-jerk most added player in all of fantasy football, both on Yahoo and ESPN. It looks like he might not even suit up week 1. Keep an eye on Christine Michael. He's just as talented as anyone in that running back's room, but it hasn't worked out so far for a lot of reasons. If there are injuries, maybe by week 6, week 8, he'll work his way onto the field consistently. Keep an eye on him, but don't add him just yet, I don't think. And one thing that I did want to touch on here before we wrap up the show, just a quick show today to get you started for the season. Now that the preseason is over, how do we feel about the preseason even existing? How do we feel about it being 4 games? Jordy Nelson was lost for the season. Kelvin Benjamin. Fantasy football owners were hurt, which is, of course, most important of all, the dear fantasy football owners. There was a great stat in Peter King's Monday Morning Quarterback this week. J.J. Watt, Adrian Peterson, Rob Gronkowski, they combined for 0 snaps. 0 snaps in this preseason. What does that tell you about how necessary the preseason is? Is it something we can cut down to 2 games? Now, Aaron Rodgers made his thoughts very clear on it. In the wake of the Jordy Nelson injury, he really didn't hold anything back. He said the preseason was unnecessary. And I tend to agree with him. But I think this is up to the coaches to handle. If the coaches deemed the preseason to be unnecessary, then they would do something about it, and they wouldn't play a single starter for a single game. If coaches thought the preseason was unnecessary, they thought the injury risk was too great, then Eddie Lacy wouldn't be playing a snap. Jamal Charles, Marshawn Lynch, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, none of these players would play a single snap in the preseason, and I think that would send a message to the league. Because the fact that fans are paying pretty close to full price for these tickets, paying for parking, paying for an expensive hot dog and beer. It's criminal. It's beyond criminal. But for the NFL to charge people that money and then make them watch only backups, well, then something might happen. I'd love to see the preseason turn into a more of a discounted rate, something where a family of 4 can go to an NFL game. Try to take a family of 4 to an NFL game now. You drive there, you travel, you book a hotel, you buy tickets, the kid gets hungry, they need a hot dog, you need 6 beer to deal with the stress of the trip. You're going to have to remortgage your house. It's insane. So it would be great to see the preseason turn into something that can open up the in-stadium experience to more people, but again, it's the evil empire. That's not going to happen. So this has been episode 23, back in the saddle. And now that we are back in the saddle, you will be getting a podcast each and every week. Usually about Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll get it out to you before you need to make your waiver claims in your fantasy football league. And each week on thebackupunter.com, there will be fantasy football studs and duds. There will be fantasy football sleepers and streamers. Keep up with who you need to add to fill in for people on a bye week. Who you need to fill injuries for. Defenses to stream. And as always, kickers to stream. Points from a kicker count for the same as points from a quarterback. And I've won some games on kickers. People don't like it, but it all counts. So my name's Keegan Matheson. You can follow along on Twitter at @TheBackupPunter. Follow on YouTube where you can subscribe there. We've had some great comments on YouTube. I appreciate all the listens, all of the subscriptions on Stitcher for Android, on iTunes for your iPhone, iPad, iMac, iSomething. Thank you for your continued support. We'll be back next week, wrapping up week 1 of the real NFL season. It's here, it's happening, and we're all about to slowly begin our descent into a 6th place finish in our fantasy football leagues. Here's hoping every punt you kick in life stops on the 1-yard line, and we'll talk next week.